Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Married with Children documentary, The Ladies of Married with Children, or The Girls of Married with Children. As we look back on the iconic Fox TV show, the cable TV show, it span across all the United States and Canada in the 80s and the 90s. A sort of a family tradition was to sit down every week and watch an episode of Married with Children and the Bundy family and the sort of Bundy lifestyle. This week, we're delighted we go to season 10. We go to episode 23. The episode was called Enemies. And believe it or not, it was its own actual pilot of a sort of a new sort of comedy show, which was supposed to be aired independently of Married with Children, a sort of a spin-off. One of the actresses in question played the character Shannon in the episode Enemies, and it was the one and only Nicole Eggert. Nicole, first of all, Enemies, I suppose it was meant to have its life of its own in terms of what it was supposed to be. It was never really supposed to be cast in the light of Married with Children, but there's where it finds itself, and I suppose many people, even to this day now, still thinks it's very much an episode of Married with Children. They don't really think or know that it was actually an individual show itself.
This is true, except it's missing all of its, main great characters for most of it. So it's sort of like a Married with Children episode takes you into another house. So yeah, it's different.
And I suppose, Nicole, this is very different as well, because this was a series, a pilot series that you were shooting. So you were casting one of the main leads, the main female lead in terms of Shannon. So you were probably preparing and hoping for maybe a 2, maybe 3 season stints, maybe 10 episodes, a sort of a season. So this wasn't for you a guest appearance role on a TV sort of sitcom at all.
No, it wasn't. And with that comes so much pressure. So when I look back at it and I think about where I was mentally, it's probably a good thing that it didn't move past that. I was, the audition for it, first of all, I've not been an actress that auditions very much. It's a process that I am very afraid of, and I've always sort of steered away from. And I don't think I've done my career any justice by that, but it's just something in me. I was put into show business as a young girl, so I didn't choose this path for myself in my life. And auditioning is something that really plays up to my insecurities and my shyness, because I am very shy and very insecure. And those are not things that actresses usually, that's usually actors and actresses are very outgoing. They like the spotlight, they like the attention. And I'm just not that person. So for me, it was like a last minute audition. It was at night, I remember. And I said, oh my God, Married with Children. Like, you don't say no to anybody involved with the making of Married with Children. So I rushed over there. I read cold, which means like I didn't have the material up front. I was handed the material when I walked in. It was a quick session. I read the role and I took my shirt off, no joke, wore my bra and put my sweater back on over. So I had a leopard bra on, and I went into the audition and just gave it everything I had and just threw myself out there. And they called that night and said, we love her, we want her, book her. And I didn't realize the pressure that came with that was overwhelming. And suddenly now I had this script to look at, and felt like it was on my shoulders to make this character. And it just was, I dove into something that was very heavy and carried a lot of weight. So I was so incredibly unhealthily nervous before, during, and after. So it just, that's, to have your own show, to be the star of your own show and to carry it, that's a lot of pressure. That's so much pressure. I give it up to every actor out there that takes that on, because that's it's a lot.
And I suppose, Nicole, in terms of having Married with Children sort of play into your episode in terms of promoting the first sort of episode of your show, was that really a wise move in one sense? Did the fan base think to themselves, oh, this is going to try and take over for Married with Children, this is Married with Children's swan song, this is going to be the new director's going to head in this sort of direction, and maybe did the Married with Children fan base that they try to attract in numbers, did they probably repel against it in terms of saying to themselves, oh, is this going to take over from Married with Children? Is this the ending of Married with Children? Did you ever feel that sort of notice?
Yes, definitely. You hit the nail on the head. Because, and also, you know, we didn't have social media then. If we had had social media, I'm sure it would have blown up all in my face and all of our faces. But yes, it was sort of like, you know, who are these people? Why are we watching them? And it's interesting because in my career, I was brought on to Charles in Charge because they were going into syndication. They wanted to save a show that was dying in the ratings. And they brought me on as a new cast. Okay. Then I'm leaving Charles in Charge, and
no problem.
Gosh, hold on.
Perfect.
Are you there? Okay,
yeah.
So sorry, I was getting a phone call. Okay, so I was brought on to Charles in Charge because they were trying to revamp a show, save the ratings, and get it to be a hit. So they recast, and I'm brought on as a new cast member for Charles in Charge. Then I'm ending Charles in Charge. I'm away in Canada shooting some independent films, and the executive producer, Al Burton of Charles in Charge, calls me and says, listen, I'm in talks with the producers of Baywatch, and the show's been canceled. They want to bring it back. They want a new cast. Can you join? Will you join? And will you do this? And we want to do a spinoff. We want to do a high school show. We're going to introduce it as an episode of Baywatch, but we want a high school show by the beach with, you know, young people. Okay. So I go on to Baywatch. I shoot this pilot. It goes nowhere. And I become a lifeguard, and I'm on this show Baywatch that I really never signed up for. And then Married with Children, the same thing. You know, the show's ending. We want to do a new show. And so it's sort of been this pattern in my life, which I probably should embrace at some point. But it's been a pattern, and it's a scary shoe to put on because it's just a lot of pressure. You know, a lot of people are counting on you, and then all your insecurities set in, and you know you're not good enough, and you know that you're going to sink this and tank this, and it's just, you know, it's a lot.
And Nicole, I watched the episode, and I was very impressed with your character Shannon, and I was actually very impressed with Matt Berlingi's character Tom. But my general sense was the other sort of characters in the sort of episode as such really didn't really get much airtime compared to the rest of the members of the Married with Children set. In fact, maybe more Al Bundy's and Christian Applegate got more time as such. So it was predominantly that episode. It was really yourself and Matt throughout the episode, really. So do you think maybe that you probably, if you had given more time to probably some of the other characters that you were trying to promote in the pilot, that people might have seen it in a different sort of light?
I would like to think so. I would like to think that people were just sort of confused by it. And if they had given it a chance and an opportunity to get to know these characters and who are these people and why are they on our television, I would like to think that it would have gone somewhere. But, you know, television goes through, you know, different tides, and sometimes networks really give an opportunity and other times they pull it really quickly. So I respect every choice that they make and why they made it, and they had their reasons for making it. But yeah, I would like to think that if they were given that, we were given the opportunity, that our characters could have, you know, kind of warmed the hearts of people. But I don't think people knew what they were watching. I think that they were confused by it.
And I suppose, Nicole, in terms of your character, sort of Shannon, the way I saw her was she was more a sort of a hillbilly sort of version of a Jennifer Aniston from Friends, in sort of that sort of a direction in terms of maybe a southern sort of a girl, a sort of such, and Tom, her boyfriend, very much sort of similar in the sort of antics. And what was the script in terms of the portrayal of the character? What did they want you to portray her as?
Well, nobody really expressed what they wanted her to be portrayed as. And I think that that's 100% reason for all the pressure. You don't know what people want. You don't know what you're supposed to give. You don't know what to do. And so I'll give you, for instance, is that I had short hair and it was very choppy and very edgy. It was when grunge was in. And that's how I did my interview, my audition. I had messy, kind of flat blonde hair, bleached blonde hair, and a little bit sleazy, I want to say, a little, because I took my shirt off for the audition, a little bit risque. And we did rehearsals. We rehearsed all week. And, the final day is shoot day in front of an audience. And I went through hair and makeup and I came out and I was like, whoa. So I was totally taken off by, I was so thrown by the way I looked when I finished that I didn't know what to do with my character, because once you're in hair and makeup and costume, it changes everything. The costume I was prepared for, the hair and the makeup, I would agree with you, looked very Southern, looked very, very everything that wasn't me. And I suddenly became very uncomfortable in my skin and wondering why my hair was cut like this and how they took my haircut and made that hairdo out of it. I was so flabbergasted and so confused. And I kind of created a whole new character on the spot. I kind of went out there and made her much more ditzy, should I say, or airhead, or a little more clueless, because I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, okay, this all has to go together. This has to match. And I don't know, suddenly my voice changed. My thought process changed. Everything went a little different when they did my hair and makeup like that. It really can affect the way you feel and the way you act. So I'm with you that I think that it looked very Southern, which I wasn't expecting. And I was thinking more Midwest. Like I was thinking dark roots, didn't really do that much with her hair. I kind of had a different perspective of what she would look like. But this is where, the meeting of the minds happens, and you have to, there's give and take, there's pull with that. So I had to adapt. But yes, I do agree with you. And especially looking back now, very Texas. She should have had a Southern twang now that I think about it, but.
Yeah, and I suppose, Nicole, one of the scenes that people talk about that episode as such, and I suppose in terms, I know I was trying to portray comedy humor, but I don't know if it sort of came across in that sort of way. It was the bathroom scene where yourself and Tom are in different sort of bathrooms, and you're shouting and roaring and pretending that the other person's making love to you as sort of such, and you have the character Alan Tickle and Christine Applegate looking on sort of fed up. Was that originally written to the script, the rehearsals from sort of day one, or was that sort of in front
I think that
of
was added. I believe that was added later. When you work on a sitcom like that, you do a read through the first day. The second day you do some rehearsals, and you do like a rough rehearsal for all the writers and producers. And everybody sort of, as it goes along during the week, the next day you can show up and it can be an entire new script. or it can be the same with a few changes, depending on the chemistry in the room and how the writers and the producers received the performances. It's all super critical. And I don't think people really understand like how technical doing a sitcom was, is because yes, you could show up and the entire script would be different. So that was sort of the case on that show, is there was a lot of writing and rewriting. And, you know, this was their baby too. This was a pilot. This was something that the writers and the producers wanted to parlay into another show, another hit. So there was a lot of overthinking and a lot of overwriting and a lot of changes all the time. So yes, that scene I believe was added at like the last hour, like literally the day before we shot.
And I suppose you mentioned shooting in front of a live audience, and I suppose that sort of a scene sort of being shot in sort of a front live audience. It must be very hard at the time. Obviously, you're so consumed in the actor that you really can't really gauge the audience sort of reaction. But in terms of probably one-liners or comedy or banter, it's just mainly shouting and sort of roaring from opposite sides of a wall, really.
This is true. Yeah, you're right. And being in front of a live audience from such a young age, I started Who's the Boss, that television show, when I was probably, I want to say about 11 or 12. And I did plays before that. So a live audience was something that I sort of tuned out in a way, but you can feel the energy. So whether you hear it or you don't hear it, you can feel it. So you know, live audience is something that will forever be missed. It was such a phenomenon in its day, and how amazing that I got that opportunity to be able to be a part of that, because we'll never have that back. Or I never say never, but we don't have that now. And what a great experience. So to feel people, you know, whether they love it or hate it, it just sounds really dark when they're not loving it, and everything looks really bright when they love it. And so I really love, and I really enjoy working in front of a live audience, because you really can gauge like where you're at, and you can thrive on it. So if you're on a roll and you're doing well, and they're giving you that love back, you feel it, and it becomes this, you know, big love fest. So yeah. It's interesting. And, you know, that scene was hard for me because I've known Alan Thicke my entire life and friends with his children. So it was a bit awkward, to say the least, to do those scenes. But he was a great guy. He was a fantastic professional and made me feel as comfortable as possible. So we just went and had fun with it and knew it was just TV.
Yeah. And I suppose in terms of guest stars on your episode, Christina Applegate was a sort of a guest star. She was sort of trying to sort of drive that sort of show. And did you really feel coming in that she was seeing it as a guest role, one appearance and then disappearing again? Or was she fully trying to immerse herself to try and make your pilot a success?
Oh, Christina is amazing. She's such a professional and such a comedian, such a strong actress. And I had known Christina from a very, very young age. So when she showed up on set, it was such like comfort and relief for me that she was there. And she was so welcoming and made me feel so much more comfortable. It just felt like, you know, we walked in on their set, on their show. And so for her, a long time, you know, childhood friend, to show up and and David Faustino as well. I mean, everybody showed up and wished us well. They really did. So it was so comforting, because it was like that little piece that we needed. Because, you know, when you walk in, it's like when you're a little kid and you walk into somebody else's classroom and you feel all nervous and strange because you don't know anybody. And then your one friend stands up and says, hi. So it was like, it was all the comfort and all the welcoming and all the warm hugs that I needed to go forward with it, because they're 100% supportive and such great talent, and for them to support. And you know, just, and just knowing them for so long and knowing them my whole life, it just feels good. It just was great familiarity that was really welcomed.
And I suppose, Nicole, it was a Friends show before its time in very much essence, in the TV sort of sitcom Friends. You have the sort of Monica sort of Ross team running in through it with Tom and Maria. You have the sort of Ross sort of Rachel thing with yourself and Shannon, and sort of a Tom sort of thing. So maybe it's all about timing and sort of the industry as well, and sort of coming around, coming about at the right time as such. I mean, you see Friends, what that went on to, and the incredible success it had in terms of the show. Do you always think to yourself, maybe if we had come along maybe in the mid-90s, and it would have been a different sort of story, and let Married with Children finish up and give the audience that few years to realise and sink in that Married with Children was finished, and come about then and try and go out on your own as such?
Well, that's interesting. I never thought about that. And I never really compared Married with Children and Friends.
No, your episode was very much like Friends in terms of similarities. Yeah.
Okay. I've never thought that. I don't see the correlation. I don't see the correlation. I think that maybe now, today, my show Enemies, that episode or that pilot, that idea, that could probably really work today. I think it was a bit ahead of its time. I never compared it to Friends. I never really put a whole lot of thought into what if. I'm a big believer in timing is everything. Things happen when they're supposed to happen. And, I just believe in fate, and I trust it. And that goes with wins and losses. So I feel like it just wasn't its time, and it just didn't happen. And there's no looking back. But I would think that today that could be a sitcom that would work. Looking back and thinking about how it was written and the way we looked and the whole dynamic, it could actually be a show today. That's not a bad, that kind of makes sense. And they'd probably be Trump supporters.
And I suppose, Nicole, in terms of your set, I spoke to Terry Ivans previously, who played the role of Maria. Maria, as a new cast, were you able to form any bit of bond or togetherness? Obviously, you were sort of preparing for a long haul, and then you find out the devastating news after the pilot that it wouldn't be going sort of ahead. So did you all have to sort of cut ties straight away in terms of it afterwards?
Well, no, Matthew, I knew. First of all, I never went into this thinking this is going to, be my life from now on. As an actor, you always think I'm going to be canceled tomorrow. Even when you get a job and you book a job, you don't believe it until you're on set shooting it, because things can be canceled before you even start. And, no, that was good case scenario that it would go on, but really you just show up and you're just going to shoot this episode. That's my perspective on it. I never try to look ahead. I never think, oh, this is going to be a hit. We're going to make this happen. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's just not how I attack things. I go in as one day at a time. And
so there was no second scripts. There was no script made for another episode, or that you were aware of after the pilot.
I don't think so. I think they were just really focusing on that one pilot, as far as I can remember, and they rewrote that so many times that probably took all their energies. I don't know if there was any other. I can't recall if there were any other episodes written. And the actress that you're speaking of, she went on to guest star on Baywatch. So I'm pretty positive. So, there's, you never, especially in Los Angeles, you're never really far from everybody. So it's not like we're saying goodbye forever and, going to separate sides of the earth. We're all just right here crammed in this tiny little city. So you see everybody again.
And I suppose that, Nicole, the sort of last question before I let you go, this is the one I sort of finish off all these sort of interviews on. Let's pretend there was a Married with Children encyclopedia, a sort of dictionary as such. And they put, and in the encyclopedia, they put every sort of guest sort of fictional character that has appeared in Married with Children throughout its 11 seasons. And they arrived at season 10, they arrived at episode 23. They came across your character, Shannon. They sort of put it in the dictionary. They left 2 blank sentences underneath it. They rang your talent agent, got in touch with you and said, listen, Nicole Eggert, they're doing a Married with Children encyclopedia, a dictionary as such. Your character, Shannon, they want 2 sentences to describe her. You portrayed the character. Or they want to know what you would like those 2 sentences to read.
Okay. Luckily, she's pretty.
A given.
Well, I mean that sarcastically, because that means, sort of always, like, if somebody says something really dull or, not that bright, we'll say, oh, thank God you're pretty. So pretty. And she needed a new hairdresser.
She needed a hairdresser. I suppose she was going for the Marilyn Monroe look in the John F. Kennedy sort of thing, in fairness, maybe.
I think so. I think you're right. You're right. And that probably, I just was very thrown. I'm a non-hairspray girl. I mean, you can see, I'm like wash and wear. I don't do much. So, for curls and rollers and hairspray, it just was very just put me in a different headspace. But okay, so no, thank God she's pretty. And does she know she's gonna get old?
Does she know she's going to get old? Nicole Eggert, an absolute pleasure talking to you today to relive your memories of your time on Married with Children, your actual own show. It was a pilot that appeared on Married with Children, season 10, episode 3. You played the one and only sort of Shannon. She was a lively sort of a character, Nicole Eggert, and you'll always be remembered for your portrayal as Shannon in Married with Children. One episode, it could have gone on to greater sort of things, but you seem to be very positive all these years later, and you can look back on it and have a laugh and a joke. And I suppose it still gets shown all over the world in so many different countries, in so many different languages, even to this day. So as it's part of the Married with Children fraternity, so it'll always live on, it'll always be shown as an episode of Married with Children. And I suppose the residuals will keep coming for you for years to come. But for the moment, Nicole Eggert, a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure speaking with you too. And I'm going to go rewatch the episode now. You've inspired me. And thank you for taking me back on this road of memory. And thanks for enjoying the work that we did.
No problem, Nicole. Stay safe and hopefully speak sometime again in the near future.
You too. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Bye.